The thing about a cinematographer is you're not trying to tell it through your lighting. You're not trying to tell it through whatever. You're just enhancing the director's vision.
Most of the famous lines in movies or TV shows, pretty much all of them are improvised.
A lot of athletes are getting into podcasting. A lot of people are getting into podcasting, and they'll have 10-minute clips that do better than the full podcast.
All right, so it only took us about an hour and a half to set this stuff up here.
It did.
Is it longer than that?
Yeah, a little bit longer than that, but we're here now.
Yeah, an hour and a half.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, as you guys know, Sean and I have been doing a podcast for the last couple weeks now, and we have noticed tremendous results. So, here I wanted to bring in Tyler. So Tyler works a lot for my company. He's done stuff for Ed Sheeran. He does music videos. He's most known for like his car stuff, but I wanted to bring in this guy here because he's like one of the most talented guys I know. And me and Sean have just been talking a lot about production, and I thought who better to bring on than Tyler. So Tyler, why don't you introduce yourself? Maybe talk about what you're specializing in. I mean, literally look at this right now. He built this whole set right here, and it looks awesome. So he's very talented. So yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that. My name's Tyler Chandler. I started off in, I would say, like the YouTube space. I started making car videos for YouTube. That kind of took off a little bit. One thing after the next led me to production. I met the real bros. They kind of helped exceed my career. They put me into an actual position where I can practice DPing and practice lighting and learn a little bit more about the production side of things rather than, running my own, I would call it video agency or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Ever since then, I've just kind of ran with the whole director of photography, cinematographer thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tyler's like I said, he's insanely talented. He's I hire him for my shoots too, and like now I only use him because he just knows when stuff looks good and when stuff looks bad. And then I kind of wanted to talk about, I want to lead this conversation into like the dynamic with Sean, because Sean and I have been talking about your marketing strategies for 2024 and how we need to be more creative and how we need to learn how to differentiate ourselves from everyone else. And I kind of want to talk about the difference between like a content creator and a cinematographer.
They're the same thing.
Yeah. Right. Because Tyler, the thing is with Tyler, he's a true cinematographer at heart. And I know one when I see one. He teaches me things every day. I'm with him. And I even told him, like, dude, you got to move in my office because, like, you teach me things and I just want you around. So he's in the office and he just, like, every time I'm with him, every time I do a shoot with him, he just teaches me something new. So I'm done talking, but I want to talk about, like, first, let's talk about like the difference, I guess.
What's the difference in your
what's
eyes?
The difference?
Let's clear the air. There's nothing wrong with being a videographer. There's nothing wrong with being a cinematographer. It's kind of where the heart goes and what you want to do with your life. So I'd say like the main difference is, and you've probably heard this a million times, is a videographer captures the world as it is. A cinematographer kind of creates the world, creates the lighting, creates the space, creates camera movement.
Like capturing the moment versus creating the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, most videographers will do like wedding stuff and they'll do like events and whatnot. Like as a cinematographer, short films, let's say, for instance, you're kind of running through with the director and you're kind of figuring out like, okay, well, what is this lighting going to emit emotion wise in the film? Or like, what is this camera movement going to do? Or what is this angle of this lens or
right.
A camera going to do as well? So
yeah, that's like perfect, because I want to talk about that because Sean and I have been talking a lot about like evoking emotions and how we want to do that on camera. Mm-hmm. And just like this lighting setup alone, it's kind of like it's just a different emotion. Mm-hmm. And when you have a cinematographer on set, like Tyler, he thinks about not just capturing the moment, but he thinks about what is the end goal of mm-hmm. this? Who are we targeting? Who is this video going to be seen by, and what kind of emotion do we want to emit? Mm-hmm. And that's what lighting does, right? Yeah. And Tyler, like lighting is one of your strong suits. That's probably your biggest strong suit, right?
I wish I could have showed it a little better today, but we were running tight on schedule.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, hour and a half in, we're just like, fuck it, let's just start filming.
It's just you run around, you try to find the locations and stuff like that, and then you try to just amplify the lighting that it's already existing, or you just try to create something like this, which is like.
What do you guys think about? Because you mentioned the differences, but my first thought process was thinking about Casey Neistat. Mm-hmm. I feel like he does like a hybrid.
Yeah.
In terms of like when he did like the vlog every day, it was like early. Well, I think it was 2016 is when he did a vlog every day for like at least 200 days in a row.
Sure.
Yeah. But like when you say we talk about cinematography or a videographer, he was doing like almost a mix of both. He had an idea of what he wanted to capture in the shot, and then he also created the moment with certain things.
Sure.
Absolutely.
But what's your perspective?
I think a majority of that's just storytelling in general, and that falls on both ends of the things. That's not just cinematography; that's also videography too, because you have to tell a story. Mm-hmm. You have to learn how to go to an event and tell a story with the event from start to end. It's not just like you're showing up shooting what you got to shoot. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like, okay, well, I also have to evoke emotion through this video, through the event, because the end goal is to sell what the event is about.
Right. Mm-hmm. So and that's why I want to talk about the difference, because there's so many people coming out of nowhere right now and calling themselves content creators. And I grew up in the film industry. Tyler's been in the film industry for pretty much a decade, and we know the difference, and that's the difference is like you're showing up, and the storytelling is not just like the writing. It's about the camera angle, it's about the lighting, and everything mixed together to tell that story and evoke that emotion that you want to portray. And like that, it's like everything together. And people are just coming out and like filming whatever and calling themselves storytellers. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah,
it's kind of
there was that I don't know if you guys saw it. It was there's a couple comedians. They did this thing on like wedding film, or like the wedding filmmakers, as opposed to just like it's okay to be a videographer and still tell a story and stuff like that, but like, no, I'm a wedding filmmaker. And then it's just like that kind of separates things a little bit. Like you can still, making a film isn't necessarily just going to an event that exists and like shooting it. Making a film is much deeper than that. There's story behind it. There's direction. There's the camera, lighting, all this type of stuff. And I think there's that dynamic nowadays. It's like, oh, I don't want to be called a videographer. I don't want to I don't want to be a videographer. I want to be a cinematographer. I want to be a filmmaker, like all this, but it's okay. It's just like, that's just what you do. It's like, it's fine. You're in your realm. If you don't want to be in that realm and you want to step more into like the cinematography end of things, then just start trying it,
right.
Learn a little bit about lighting, learn a little bit about like focal lengths and what they're doing to your subject and all that type of stuff. And like, it's the story, the true.
It's all those little things.
Yeah, the thing about a cinematographer is you're not trying to tell it through your lighting. You're not trying to tell it through whatever. You're just enhancing the director's vision. You're coming in there. You don't want people to notice your cinematography. I think that's like the most important thing. And Roger Deakins says it all the time. The second somebody comes up to him and says, "Oh, that shot was beautiful," he feels like he failed.
That's another difference, because like I said, a lot of content people coming out and just calling themselves content creators, they'll like set up a light or something, or they'll do something because that's what YouTube told them to do. Or the books told them to do. Something that Tyler does that I love is he's like, no, this is not practical. Like if he sees something on set that is like, maybe it's the right lighting on paper, but he's like, yeah, but where is this light source coming from? Is this motivated by the right thing? It's like all those little details that people don't understand.
Yeah, they don't. This is what's interesting, because like I'm sitting here because I'm speaking for the people that might be watching this. I don't know. I understand like you guys are explaining the layers, but I was going to ask you guys like, how do you do you even mention this when you're talking to a client? Because like for me, it's like, I don't like, for me, I'm on the end of talking to them in the sense of what's going to produce results. And then there are methods to producing results in terms of like making, like, I feel like there's a lot of misconception because like most people don't understand what you're saying, but you guys are in it. You're in it in the passion of understanding what the ingredients of what makes that, or what makes something a masterpiece, or what makes something be felt the way it's felt. in reality, people are told to make video on my side of things. I'm telling people to make video from the pure fact of bringing dynamic, a unique view to it, because A, no one's necessarily doing it. And B, it's just gonna make them the obvious choice in terms of from their competitor, because they're not even telling their story to begin with. Because realistically, everyone's got a story. Like objectively, there's a professional way to tell a story, but in terms of objectively, most businesses don't hold value in their story. They think it's just some passive thing, when in reality, like we talked about, like that's what makes them different. Like how do you talk to them? Do you even talk to them about this stuff? Because like you guys are pumped, and I'm like, I'm just learning. I'm like, okay.
When I'm talking to a client, like for the first time, I never mention any of this stuff that I'm talking to Tyler with. Like you're completely right. And when I'm with Tyler alone, like we get in these conversations and we talk about movies and we talk about this and that, and I never talk like this to the client, because they don't understand any of this stuff.
They don't care.
They don't care. They care about how much money are you going to put in my pocket. What's the outcome?
I mean, you guys have said it before in your podcast alone, and they want results. And that's the most important thing, is they want results. And I think that that's on whoever's leading the project to bring in the people that are going to help execute those results. Like realistically, like some businesses don't need tons of lighting. They don't need all this stuff. They just need something that works.
Well, that's the beauty of this podcast, is that we can kind of go in depth about what really matters behind the scenes that tells that story creatively. That's what the beauty of the podcast is. And me and you have seen like amazing results from just like 2 weeks of podcasting. And I think, to anyone out there, if you want to go in depth like we are about stuff like in your business, like podcasting is like the number one easy way that you can start promoting your business in 2024. If you just want to like tell your story and go in depth about whatever your industry is, like I just want to say that, like, start podcasting. It's like the easiest way. And you get a bunch of clips from it too. Like, it's so easy. I just want to say that, but like that's really the beauty of doing this, is we can go into detail about what makes the results.
I'm curious to know your side of things a little bit more. Like, what do you think about the differences between videography, cinematography? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think
that's where I was going to go with it? I'm looking at everything. I feel like any client that I work with, my priority is I tell clients they need to have some type of professional production. I would say at least once a year. My biggest thing is I always promote them to have a media management team, meaning they have maybe a videographer in-house part-time, maybe full-time. Maybe they're just using the camera, or they have some more skill or better equipment to go ahead and shoot what the day-to-day is. Because for me, I work with people that have a lot of clientele on a regular basis, on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. And so the biggest thing is to capture the day-to-day to ultimately get the trust of people that are searching, because we come from an age where the yellow pages was essentially where people looked into, and then they made a decision they called. Like that phone book, you would see inside the phone booth. And then the yellow pages inside the phone booth, and you would see a business and you would like put your finger on it and you would call, and then you would go there. But now it's to the point where people need to understand why they would choose this company versus 100. So immediately I say once a year, I want to do some type of professional production where we're having, you, Levi, on set, and we create a perception, an in-depth perception of it, which I think is very important. And then from there, consistently feeding just base grade content on a weekly, monthly basis, where, because overall every year can have I call it a Netflix narrative. Like this year's, for my clients, is demand more in 2024 for your marketing strategy. So you need to demand more. If you have the budget, if you have the time, the energy now, this is the time to drop a significant amount of money on a high quality production, as well as having someone in-house. So I would say it's like a 80-20 rule. In terms of volume, because I love both. Because
the key is like volume might matter, but the key is consistency. If you're not consistent with your marketing and consistently telling your story, then that's where you're going to miss the mark. Because like people come up to me all the time and they're like, hey, like how can I creatively tell my story? And I can assist you with that. But the thing is, if you're just consistent and you ingrain your story into your target audience's mind on LinkedIn or whatever platform you're best suited for, That's how you're going to get results in 2024.
Yep.
It's not about like, I'm going to do one great project and that's going to give me all the results. It's about sticking with it. That's what most people can't do, is stick with their same marketing strategy. They just give up after making like 3-4 YouTube videos.
Well, the thing is I think a lot of that, you don't get results right away. And I think that's the problem with it, is people with sticking with it. You have to stick with it in order to see the results, because that's how algorithms work, right? You got to be consistent. You're not going to get 1 million views on your first one. You're not going to get, the hell, you might not even get 100 views on the first one. But you just stay consistent, and then the algorithm will realize that, you're putting effort into our platform, so we're going to bump you up.
Yeah. And the consistency builds trust too over time, because if people watch your podcast or watch your videos on LinkedIn or YouTube, and they're longer form, or maybe even just a lot of short form videos, they feel like they know you when they see you in person.
Yeah.
And that's what me and you have noticed too. When people come up to us after just we've podcasted, they're like, wow, man, I love your podcast and I love what you said here. I'm like, oh shit, I did talk about that.
It makes it almost throws you off, because it's like, what? But it makes the introduction easier.
Right. Because they feel like they already know you and they already trust you, and they come to you already ready to buy because they know your story already.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is that just if you stay consistent, ingrain your story into the audience's mind, and you're going to get results. Pay attention
to what is grabbing people's attention. Because for me, I not only just post organically, but I'm also making these videos or having these videos produced, and I'm running ads on them as far as budgets goes. And so with the analytics, you can see who's consuming a video the most. And so for me, just to kind of break down my psychology of it, doing a production, have you guys, it's like, okay, I'm always talking to Levi about hooks. I'm like, he's like, do you think this is going to work if we do this? I'm like, it's a possibility, but if we could maybe exercise 5 to 10 different ideas to intro this, say product or service or the identity of this business. And then I can advertise that simultaneously. And then give me a week, a couple of days or 2 weeks time, we can come back to the drawing board, and I can give you an idea of like, out of these 10 videos, these 3 videos got the most attention, where people watch from start to beginning. Like 85% of people watch these 2 hooks out of the 10. Yeah. So for me, that's how I digest it, because that's what's interesting. Because like I work with a lot of people in film, and one thing I've learned is it's the war between being objective and like really indulging into the passion. Because I've met people that are like, it's like, I appreciate it, but like talking to the client, that's where the expectation comes in. And that's what I've been better at, because if the expectation is not set, like they need to understand that this is going to take time. They understand quality of production versus consistent production. I think that would be
I want to go back to that, because you were talking about testing too. It's like, that's why it takes a lot of time too. Yeah. Because when you're testing out stuff, people come to us and expect, I'm going to do, like I said, one video and it's just going to give me all the results in the world. Yeah. It's about, okay, let's try this, and this on our first shoot, see what works, then come back to it. And then next shoot, now we know we're dialed in. Yeah. We know exactly what we're going to do the next shoot. We know exactly what the audience likes. We know exactly what story to tell, and we just double down. And if people could understand that, if I could get that across to our target audience, like if there's one thing I could get across, it's that. It's not going to come immediately. We need to find out your story first and really be in it. And then once we find that, we double down.
You know what's interesting? Just thinking about it, because consumers enjoy both. They enjoy high quality production, where they're going to go see Oppenheimer and it's like, oh my God, this is like emotionally overwhelming, where it was like this crazy thing. And then we also enjoy TV shows, like how it's made. Yeah. Like how it's made. People want to know the process of your business. People want to understand. And it doesn't necessarily need to be this like exaggerated thing. It's the curiosity of like, oh, wow. Like that's how you guys set up this studio today. Like that's how it's made. And so that's where, again, I'm always a hybrid of both, because like you need the polarity for both. And it's not even like, I hear so many people, it's like one or the other. Because like when you guys are talking, like it's like, I'm learning. I'm like, I feel like I'm taking notes in my head mentally, because I've never heard some of the terminology and in terms of just how things are layered. I did hear Kobe Bryant. The close thing I did, Kobe Bryant did an interview with Patrick Bet-David, and then he talked about how he watched movies 7-8 times over. He watched it for the lighting. He watched it. He listened to the music. He also did it for the shading, the color grading. Just he watched it to understand like the intent of the director. Because after he got out of the league, he did he started to do like short films, and they were like pretty decent. But he brought my eyes to that. I was like,
every time I watch a movie, I'm always studying it, and I'm always thinking about the emotions. But
that's kind of like the problem with being in this industry and stuff like that. It's hard to disassociate and like watch it as the audience. Anytime I'm working with the director and they tell me, hey, this is the movie that we're referencing, because that's realistically, it's like there's a lot of people referencing, and it's like stealing like an artist and stuff like that. So like when they tell me to go watch something or study something, it's I try to just sit back and watch it as a person that's just not in the industry. Try to watch it, feel the emotions that come in, see like, oh, well, how did this movie make me feel? Or just kind of like think about that after the fact, because you're not trying to focus on all that stuff in the meantime. And then you watch it again and you go, okay, well, this is kind of like what they're saying. Like this scene drove this emotion, or like, just like you're dissecting the color, or you're dissecting the build of the sound and stuff like that. It's not necessarily like,
because when you're watching it that second time, you already know the dialogue, you already know what's going to happen. So you can focus more on, okay, how did they set me up for that moment? Yeah. Does that make sense?
You can start to dissect things a little bit more professionally.
So that's actually a good tip for like business owners who are trying to get into video, is like watch movies, because like they tell a story in like some of the top movies, like we were just talking about Blade Runner, the way they tell the story and they bring you into the environment. If you're a business owner, you're getting into video, watch movies and pay attention to how they bring you into the environment and how they tell the story. Yeah. And maybe even watch it 2 times over and take that and bring it home with you. Because in 2024, like with AI coming out and everything, like we need to focus on how to be more genuine and tell our story in a more genuine way. And there's no better way to do that than with video.
If we can establish levels, I think that'll bring a lot of clarity, because it is important for the client to know. It is important to know, but it is also important for them to start to kind of marinate in it and not doing it all. Like if they don't do it at all, then it's like, pick up the camera, then watch that video, and then pay attention to how people react to it online. Not just one versus the other. It's a lot of ultimatum conversations.
We talk about a lot that you don't need to have a professional crew right off the bat. Some people do. It just depends on your industry. But I've turned a lot of people away because I'm like, dude, you just need to like start and go on your phone. That's why I say, like pay attention when you're watching movies and TV shows and stuff and how they tell their story, because you can do that same thing in your business. And if you just start on your phone, you're going to notice results, and you're going to notice that people are watching your stuff and they're going to come to you in person and they're going to notice. But yeah, a lot of times it's not, the answer is not to hire a professional crew out. Now, if you're doing something big and you want like next Wednesday, we're doing a shoot with a cleaning company and they want like a bunch of videos shot in one day. They don't even know where to start, but they have the budget and they have the vision. They just don't really have the time to execute it. And that's where we come in, with as a professional company, and we can come in and help them execute that vision in a efficient way. And that's like when it's a good fit. But sometimes, you just need to start. That's the biggest thing. It's like working out. It's like your New Year's resolution. You just need to freaking start.
You gotta start from somewhere. Yeah. And I think what this is my biggest trying to sell point when I was doing most of that stuff myself, is just that you have to establish an emotional connection with your audience, because the difference from posting a photo ad of your company versus getting in front of the camera as the owner or as like someone high up in the company or even an employee or something, is you establish that emotional connection with the audience and you give them a face to look at, and that's more trusting. That's more trusting for anybody.
Yeah, you're not going to gain the audience's trust by like a graphic with words on it anymore. No. It's just not going to cut it. No, you need to have video on your LinkedIn and on your YouTube, and you need to show your face. Like that is the new standard. That's a new norm, and all the algorithms now are favoring video. they're not favoring these graphics anymore. They want you to be on the platform for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And a picture graphic keeps someone.
Yeah, watch time keeps you on there.
When I see like a bunch of picture graphics in a row on LinkedIn and I'm scrolling through, I just kind of get bored after a while. Versus when I see
too analytical.
Yeah, well, versus when I see a video and someone's face pops up, it's like, okay, now I'm like engaged. And you got to think about it. These platforms want you to be on there as long as possible to watch their ads. That's how they get, the revenue from. So you need to be creating video because that's what the platforms are favoring.
I blame TikTok for all of this too. It's just the people's attention spans are like it's the hook. You got to grab them and then you got to maintain them because that's the one like. My girlfriend, for instance, she does not have like a crazy attention span. She'll send me a video and I'll watch it like all the way through. And then she'll be like, oh, I didn't even see that part. She doesn't watch videos all the way through. Yeah. But she loves them. She loves to watch videos. So it's just like maintaining
her brain's fried.
It's just that retention of your client, like whoever's watching,
That's why I'm always trying to do long form activities like puzzles. Go back on walks to reset your brain.
Like, it's not attention span though, because I think that it's not because it's interest, right? It's getting someone's interest. Yep. And that's why I think there's two things that are going to be important in this next year. And that's going to be thumbnails and hooks. If you can master those two things in this next year, you're going to gain the interest. Yeah. That's the key, is gaining the interest. Once you grab people's interest and you set the expectations right away and they're like, oh, I need to learn about this. It's game over. They'll listen to your hour podcast. They'll listen to your 10-minute video. But if you master those two things, then you're going to get their interest really easily.
One thing I think that's, I guess, from my world that's important to emphasize to people might be watching is there's certain pieces of content that might convert better based on the platform. That's why in this case, doing a long form podcast is something that's valuable to us and on this case, to test. Because for businesses, like if we do an hour podcast, there's certain things we might say on here that might work better on TikTok versus Facebook. Like earlier I was saying, like there's certain reels that are, like I've got some reels on Facebook that are doing really well that aren't doing well on Instagram.
Right.
And it comes down to maybe what was said, how it's edited.
B2B, B2C. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Facebook works better for B2C.
Like putting an hour, and I think this is important to be super redundant, like putting an hour podcast on Facebook doesn't necessarily make the most sense, but putting the hour on YouTube and then maybe, Spotify, because that's what all the big machines are doing. Like a lot of athletes are getting into podcasting. A lot of people are getting into podcasting, and they'll have 10-minute clips that do better than the full podcast, or they know people aren't going to watch the full podcast. They just break up certain major points of that on a minute on TikTok, 10 minutes on YouTube, 3 minutes on LinkedIn. And from a business owner, like that's important. That's the thing you got to like understand, and almost you have to like study. Or for me, it's just second nature, where I'm like, okay, like there's certain things to be made, like vertical versus horizontal, thumbnail versus headline versus captions.
Absolutely. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Tyler, when he's really good at like knowing the root of the audience and what they're thinking and what emotions we need to do to connect with that audience, or what emotions we need to convey. But when you're posting on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, you need to think about what your audience is thinking when they click on that platform. Like for instance, LinkedIn, people are wanting to learn more about business and the economy, and they think about work when they're going on LinkedIn versus TikTok. People just want to, they want to see
scroll. You want to see something like,
want your brain
my algorithm is like comedian podcasts right now, like Shane Gillis pop up, or like just all these like Jeff or Joe Rogan. I don't know.
But after
like just pops, just like all these funny like that's what my TikTok is. And then you go on Instagram or something else, and it's something about production, and then you so on and so forth.
But after a long day of work, you're going on TikTok to see those things because you want unwind. That. You want your brain to. You're like, I'm done with work stuff. I need to go on TikTok. You're never like, I'm done with work stuff. I need to go on LinkedIn and look up more work stuff.
But as business owners, why like that's important to listen to. Like you just said something that's important in terms of like an example of a business producing more business for them. The comedians, what they're doing now, because I get those too.
Yeah.
Like the comedians are filming their their in-person shows, and they're purposely putting snippets. They'll say it on stage, like this is going to do so well on TikTok. It's long form format, and then somewhere in there, and of course, link in bio, it's going to their ticket sales. But that is how a lot of people are growing their business. So if we're thinking that this is why it's important to have high quality production, overall volume and consistency of it. Like, what could a small business owner or corporate business do with 10 hours of content of their meetings to maybe sales calls to testimonials with clients and overall a collaboration, a Netflix narrative made of their business, and then being able to chop that down on TikTok, on LinkedIn. Cause being able to associate something that's tangible. Cause I'm sure somebody listening, they've been on TikTok, they've been on these platforms, they've seen the comedian, what's one, Matt Rife, Nate Jackson.
Matt Rife is owning the internet right
he's
now.
Dominating.
Yeah. Even though he's gotten canceled for a couple of the recent things he's done, I mean, he's still kind of owning the internet.
He is,
he knows his demographic well too. Have you seen his Netflix? I
haven't watched a Netflix special. I've seen so many clips from it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. But he knows his audience. His audience is 80% women. He's he said something in there. He's like, there was more guys in here. They would
Mm-hmm.
understand this joke, but that's just important to.
It's important to know your audience.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Some people try to force another audience because they want or they think that that's the right thing to do. You need to know your audience. Like you said, look at the analytics and see who is viewing your videos, and it'll even show you women or men or how long they're viewing it, and it'll show you everything. And that's why the analytics are important, because people like Matt Rife and people who have the algorithms locked in, they know their audience like the back of their hand. And that's another key for businesses, is know your audience and look at the analytics, look at what's going on.
This way you have to demand more in 2024, because if you haven't, I said this the other day, if you haven't put 10 hours worth of content on the internet for your business, then you shouldn't write it off. You shouldn't write it off because you've probably watched 10 hours or you played the game, your favorite game for 10 hours at some point in your life that you've consumed and you've talked about it. And that's a business. That's a narrative that exists in your business. If you only did that one video, if you only did that one production with that one production company, or you did ads for that one business, you haven't given your business the opportunity, because everybody's got a narrative to be put out there at a high quality standpoint and the basis and combined.
And we've talked about this a lot too. You need to sit back and think about what narrative you want to produce. Yeah. And maybe even test out different narratives. And sometimes it might be easier than you think to create a narrative and figure out your algorithm and figure out what's going to work. It's easier than sometimes. It's just about just sitting back and thinking. One thing, I'll kind of tie this into Tyler right here, because he created a film, Omerta, recently
with the director Nolan Tondra. I can't leave my boy out, but Nolan came up with a great story for that.
Right. That was the director, right? But for instance, that whole thing was just, most of it was dialogue. Yeah, it was a dialogue. Yeah, most of it was just people sitting at a table.
It was one main scene that was it. It was just people sitting at a table, and that was the majority of it. We created a world from it, but
me watching that, I was like, this just shows you don't need to I'm not saying it wasn't a lot of work, right? But I'm saying for the impact that story had, and for the emotions that I got after watching that, I mean, that whole thing was basically just one scene, and it wasn't a lot of work. Whatever. It was a lot of work, but it wasn't.
There was simplicity, but there's a lot of strategy behind.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you could sit back and think about the strategy, a lot of times it could be simple. Yeah. Simple strategy.
I can't talk too much on the project yet, because I don't know if the director really wants me to, but we have a really simple, you could call it simple, but there's a lot of complexity in it. So it's it could be another thing where somebody's like us, for instance, we're sitting here. This could be as simple as a thing as us just sitting here and talking with the cameras set up as they are right now. Yep. Or, we can move the cameras closer for certain things. Like if this was written down dialogue, we can move the cameras closer for certain things. We could back them up to observe more. We could put them up high to I don't know. There's just so much different emotion, and that's where the complexity comes from.
But that's why you need to think.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on this earlier. because this might, I guess, because you keep saying like how to sell that to your client and stuff like that. My biggest thing, I don't remember exactly who said this. I read it in a book, but you have a number one in every business. Not everybody can be a number one. And in my eyes, like the director's a number one, right? As me, myself, I'm not a good number one. I'm not good at like holding everything, but I can be a good number two, which in my eyes,
number one in my eyes.
In this situation, the cinematographer is like a good number two because he's working directly with the number one. And then so on and so forth. 3, 4, 5. You have your gappers, your lighting technicians, your grips who are building stuff, and those guys are so talented in their own spec. Like I focus specifically on camera now. I don't try to do. I mean, I take jobs outside, but I don't really do other stuff too much. I hire people who have studied that, and this is the same thing as studying your algorithm, studying your marketing and stuff like that. Like I want to study my craft and I want to get 100% good at what I'm doing and not distract myself by doing other stuff.
100%.
And that comes like with hiring the people below you. Be like, okay, well, why do we need this crew? Well, this guy's got 10 years in the industry working on this specific thing. And that would just speed up our process.
Yeah. Right. I love that because I'm big on that. I've had so many opportunities to expand into other industries and other professions. Yeah. And I don't. Yeah. And I've just accepted that that's not my strong suit. Yeah. Like, that's why I have you on. Like, if I was good at being behind the camera, I would just do it myself. Yeah.
That's why I have to be self-aware.
That's not my strong suit. So I have Tyler. Yeah. And I know that me and him have kind of started to build this chemistry where I know he's going to know what I want and he's going to teach me some things and he's going to tell me, no, you need to do it this way. And I'm fine with that. Like, it's about accepting that I'm not good at this profession. That's how you can really create a good end product because everyone can come together collectively.
Well, that's the thing. It's leaving your ego at the door and collaborate and working with each other and being okay to be like, on your side of things, you come up to me, you can say, well, I don't really think that's going to work. Okay. Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. Let me take a step back. I don't like, this isn't just for me anymore. This is for us. This is for the project. This is to make things better. So it's like, 100%. A big thing is leaving your ego at the door. I'm going to leave it on that just because, like,
well, you've had people,
not everybody's right.
You've had people like I'm not going to name any names, but you've had a shoot recently where someone had an ego.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah, we all have them. Yeah. But it's a matter of like,
there's like a little clash there when that happens. The beauty of
there's just so much stress and stuff that you start incorporating when it's just like, no, things are my way. And then there's a lot of directors and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of big time directors who are like that. It has to be their way. And then you have the opposite where people will collaborate and you can get beautiful things from like that number one person being the way they are. My girlfriend just talked about this too. It's like, an artist has to be very particular in order to get what they're looking for. And sure, that's true. Like I have a lot of things that I'm very particular about, but I'm open to collaboration.
Yeah, you have to be open. Sorry, Sean. I just want to say this one thing because I was talking about it yesterday. Like, you have to be open when you're on a film set. You have to have an open mind, and because most of the famous lines in movies or TV shows, pretty much all of them are improvised. You know, like I can think about a couple scenes, like just off the top of my head, like I'll be back, you know, like the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger, that was improvised. And like the whole, like, what movie was it? Where Wolf of Wall Street, that scene was improvised. Or the director, he saw him on the side, like warming up for the scene and he was doing that. And he's like, oh, that needs to be in the scene.
Yeah.
That's an example of the director having an open mind and leaving his ego at the door and being like, wow, like, I can see things objectively now and I can look and that's the key for being a director, just having an open mind and looking and listening. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, I was just listening. I was just soaking it in. I don't know. I would say just out of everything, it's because like I'm just tying everything you guys are saying. I'm tying it back to because I working with a lot of people on the outcome based side of things. Because like for me, I would think if it could just be presented in the sense of like almost a grade of a car. Like you can get to where you want to be if you have a Honda, or you can get where you want to be if you have a Ferrari or Lamborghini. Yeah. Like there's Lamborghini production, there's Lamborghini, and then there's Honda production. And you can get where you want to go, but if you want to make an impact the impact of when you pull up to the car, or when you pull up to the mall, or when you pull up to the restaurant with the Honda versus the Lamborghini, it's going to be different. The reaction is going to be different. And understanding not only that, but understanding where you're driving to, not only understanding the vehicle you have, but understanding the destination you're going to, then, and And if people can understand that might be watching this, because it's like, okay, where do I start? Where am I at? Like I was just talking with a company that wants to, it's a chiropractor in Chandler. They want to go all in on production, and they want to do something consistently because they have all of the stories. But they want to do a hybrid of both based off of it. I told them that they need to do a hybrid of both and to start, because they're capable and they're able to and they're wanting to. But that was after, filtering through that. But that's where my mind was at. I was just kind of thinking about the people that might be listening to this, and it's like, where do I start? Okay, how do I have a I'll be back right now in my business? And like what's that signature?
That's the thing, because people, when you got to start, because people fear imperfection. But that's why I wanted to mention that, like those scenes that are improvised, sometimes even in songs, like there's imperfections in songs that end up being like the biggest line in the song. Like I know this is kind of like a weird reference, but Mo Bamba, that,
I know exactly what you mean.
That line is, remember how big that line was for like a month, dude? And that was like him messing up. So that's an example of why you shouldn't be afraid to mess up when you
clip
start.
It in right now.
Clip it in right now. No, but yeah, don't be afraid to like mess up. That's the whole part about it. That's the beauty of it.
But going into the ego scenario, that's where things get lost. Because you said people are on set, like it's all about their masterpiece, which is fine. And that's where it's like, what's the context? Okay, you want to create a masterpiece. Is it to create, like, what's the objective of the masterpiece being created? Is it for a client or is it your masterpiece? And that's where I think where a line is blurred, where it's like there's people that might be in charge that might blur. And like you were saying before, you said at one point it was your project more than it was their project. I think you mentioned that in the first podcast.
Yeah, that's
that evolution.
Right. Yeah. That's why you have to take your ego out of it, because sometimes, like, I used to go in and be like, this is my project. This is my vision. If it doesn't go this way, then it's wrong. I've kind of learned how to open up and think of it like this is your project. And if something that I see arises, then I'm going to roll with the punches. I'm going to go with the flow. And I've seen better results from just doing that and having an open mind.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I loved working with Nolan on Omerta too. It's because he initially came to me. It's obviously his script. It's his project that he came out with. But I got so invested, and so did so many other people. Our two main actors got really invested, and it just wasn't Nolan's project anymore. It was everybody's project. We all treated it like our baby, and I think that's why it came out so good. It's because you allow people to get invested in the project, and then once they get invested in the project, and they feel like they have a voice in that production.
Voice of production.
They get a voice in that production. I feel like the collaboration and things like somebody could have a great idea that might not make it to screen, but like that it just being able to say that and then go through it and be like, yeah, this will tell the story, or no, this won't, is I think it's so much. But if you like hinder people from being able to have that voice and be like, no, shut up, like we don't care about your idea. That's just like nobody wants. You don't allow artists to create that way,
right?
You got to let the artist be free. You really gotta let people try stuff. You gotta let people speak their mind and be who they are, or else you're just gonna you
can't discount anything, dude. You can't discount anything.
100%.
But yeah, that I like that you brought up scripts too, because I was talking about this yesterday with my buddies at the cigar shop, and most stuff is okay, that's all good. No, most stuff is like improvised, and when you have a film like Omerta, I mean, I don't know, I wasn't on set for that. I just watched it. It was freaking amazing. But most films, like the character is so embodied. Like I like the Joker. The Joker's a great example because Joaquin Phoenix, he crushed that character. I mean, you could feel it, and he was kicking the trash can, and he was just frustrated, and he even reminded me,
for that role.
There's method actors, man. There's method actors who really get into the emotion of the character. It's like that's crazy to me, to be able to disassociate from your own personality to become something on paper.
Yeah, and
got so skinny. He had like an apple a day.
Right.
That's all.
And you could feel the depression through the screen. Like you could feel it. And it even reminded me to when I was like struggling too. Like it would just brought me in so well. And you walked out of that movie theater and you're like, holy shit. And I never forgot that. And that's why
I'll rewatch that a couple of times in general. Like just, that's how good that Joker is.
It's so good because, and that's why you need to focus, if you're a business owner, tying it back to this, that's why you need to focus more on the emotion and stop thinking about what you're going to say on camera. Stop waiting for your ideas to come. Think about the emotion you want to convey, because that's what people are going to remember after they're done watching your video. That's what I remembered after I was done watching the Joker, was the emotion of it. I don't remember the dialogue of the Joker. I remember walking out of that and feeling the feelings that I was feeling.
But this is where our expert opinion comes into place, because going back to the client scenario is people like this, there's personalities in businesses. This is why I like to meet the staff, the employees. I want to know the story. I want to know the storyline. I want to know who are the voices of production, whether you're in sales, whether you're, going to see the inspections for your clients, some interaction, because there's people that have personalities tied to the business that might remind us of some of these characters we see in movies. And that's where we come into place, where we can do. You have John over there that works in HR. He really seems like a person that doesn't mind being on camera. And if we could have him involved in on the camera and potentially represent the company, or having this 30-second part inside the commercial that we're thinking about producing, I think we can really, really hit it on the head as far as really embodying and having people understand who you are as a company. Yeah. But that's where our expert eye comes in. That's where, in this case, why we are the obvious choice in this sense. Because it's our job to point those things out, because a lot of people don't know. They don't know that where their Joker is or their Arnold Schwarzenegger is. Realistically, it's there. It just hasn't been captured. As a business, I think you should sit back and think about, if my brand was a character from a movie, what character would it be? It could be an existing character. It could be a new one, but you need to think about that. And that's a foreign conversation, because I always tell people, they need to incorporate some type of media management, where that is just, it's the standard every year. Like if you're making $10 million a year, and you're doing 20% margins every year, you need to start to figure out how to spend 5% of that into media, where you have, fame come in, you have a production team come in, you have somebody running ads, where you think about those identities in there. Because a lot of people don't think about that. We got to kind of think about, especially working with corporate companies. They're like, what? Filming? No, this is something that you need to have an identity going into demanding more in 2024. That's the standard. It's the standard to constantly be telling and nurturing and evolving your story. That's why, that's what people attempt to do when they make version 1 of a movie, like Equalizer 1, Equalizer 2, Equalizer 3. It's the opportunity, at least in my head, to continue the story, obviously make money, but the art of it to better tell the story. And that's why it never necessarily ends. That's why that's why I said V1. It's like V1. That's why diversity of content is important too.
That's I was just thinking about this too, and that's a good tie into that. A lot of people don't really think about internal video, internal stuff too.
We're doing that on Wednesday. Let's go.
It's internal. It's going to the people who are within the company, and sometimes take care of your employees first. I work with a company, and Nolan's the guy who's bringing me on that one, but their main thing is employee first. And I think that's beautiful.
Well, we shot a podcast the other day. I said this on our podcast.
That's the first thing I thought about when you said that.
Yeah, we shot, Tyler and I were on set for that. And Sam Bradford, the guy who did the TED Talk, he said the employees or the customer's not the most important in the business. The employees are, because they're the ones that serve your customer.
Yeah, you take care of your employees. They're going to want to work hard. They're going to want to work for the company. They believe in the company, and that's what.
That's where the brand identity becomes so important, because if you get your employees aligned in that same identity, that transfers all the way to that end consumer. Yeah.
And just from a number standpoint, business owners watching this, that's part of your P&L when you're having those correct. Right now it's Q1. People are having meetings for Q2, Q3, Q4 in terms of in the year, down the year. If you want to increase profits and decrease loss, and part of it is nurturing your internal relationships. Oh yeah. It's not always because it's not always on the offensive. Part of it is taking care of what's inside, not just outside. How can we get more sales? Have you taken care of the people taking the volume of the calls?
Minimize your turnover rate.
Yeah. Are you talking to human resources? Do you know people that have a bigger ear in the company that you can like tie with and invest into them where they want to be at the company or not shopping around. Having those videos and having a mission statement and talking about the why and doing like fun things, that'll better off your company where you don't have to go through 17 people of rehiring versus just having those 1 or 2, 3 people that are good. They like where they're at. And if you just ask them a couple questions on why and maybe get them involved in front of the camera, your company will go to places you never thought.
That's why I love the industry I'm in. Like, that's why I feel so lucky that I fell into this and that I've been learning this since I was a youngin'. Because
youngin'.
Because it's so important, not only for those internal videos, but for external too. Like just video needs to be in your marketing strategy for this upcoming year, and it's great for the more you tell your story, you can grow your audience organically, get those customer acquisition costs down. It's just, if you're not doing it already, you're already behind. You're just behind. And it's as simple as that. And I want to say that in every podcast, and I won't stop saying that.
Hey, we're going to keep going.
I just want to ingrain that into people's minds that you need to be doing video.
It's never not enough. Like, we're just starting. Obviously, we're the third one in, and some things you might think about, like, oh, I've said this already, but like not enough. There's the people that need to hear this still have yet to hear it, and it's not everybody. So like, telling your story solves all. Yeah. That's telling your story solves all. Just cut the podcast right there. But anyway.
Yeah. I want to touch back on the internal side of things, because I think it transfers over to production too somehow. I always forget who says stuff, but somebody said something like, treat the PA with the same respect that you treat the director, because you never know what that PA is going to be someday. You know, you gotta like, that PA might turn into a director that's going to hire you for a project down in the future.
I was a PA.
And define PA for
you were
people
a PA, right?
A PA is a production assistant.
Oh yeah, we should probably say that.
They normally.
That's why I'm here to mediate.
They normally do the grunt work. You know, they might sweep some floors. They might be giving people water bottles throughout the day, and their job is just as important as everybody else, because they're kind of 100%. Making sure the people on set are okay and they're fed.
Everything's
aligned. They got water and stuff like that. Like, and there's no job on set that should go unseen, I think. And you know, just because they're at a quote unquote lower position than you does not mean that they're less of a person than you. I was a PA. I've done PA work. It's not like the most fun, but like it was amazing because I got to see firsthand what the industry can give me.
Right. I was a PA too, dude. I remember being on those big film sets and just like seeing everything and internalizing it and realize, like, when I was a PA, that's when I realized that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like that, I remember the moments that the things that I saw on these,
you
like,
could spark a fire in someone.
Right.
Like, it's
that's
like
why that's why I always treat the PA with respect, because I know that I was there, and that was like the moment where that was the life-changing moments for me, those days when I was a PA. And that's why you need to like treat them with respect, not only with respect, but train them up and teach them things that are going to be valuable for them down the road, because they are the future, you know? Yeah.
Answer every question they have. And to the people who want to be PAs, don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, even if you're changing departments from going to being a PA to something in camera department like AC, and you don't know something, AC is camera assistant. But if you don't know something, don't be afraid. Come up and ask questions. People like, I would much rather you ask me a question than you try to figure it out for 20 minutes and then.
Right, dude. I no, 100%. I even still PA on some set. Like, if there's a big movie set going on, like there's this there's like a big commercial that was being shot that I heard about, and I'm like, hey, can I like help out? Like, I still PA, and I ask the directors questions, and I ask, you know, I'm always learning. I'm always seeking to learn, and that's the beauty of being a production assistant, is like, you need to learn before you
gotta
earn.
have PAs come on, because like,
learn before you earn, I guess. Yeah.
Like, I would love to hear, like, I saw, and you guys talking about that, I'm thinking about like sitting down with people, just kind of like keep consistently capturing that perspective, because a lot of people might have that hindrance of like, oh, I can't do something, because the business that does it really well, they highlight internally, they're not perfect by any means, but it's like the NFL. Like, if you follow football teams, and you might follow their pages, and a lot of them, they have productions talking about the ball boy. Like, there's different balls for the punt, for special teams, when people punt versus field goals. And there's like, they purposely like break down like what's the process, who's doing it. why is it important? But this is the tie back in for businesses. Like there's part of your business you might not think is an important task, or, you might be overlooking.
Yeah.
That if you started to highlight it would do your whole organization and your business so much good, and you might not even realize it. And if you pay attention, because there's a lot of examples of people doing it good, especially the big corporate conglomerates. And that's why I'll work with corporate as well, but like I'm always talking about the small business owner, like take note so you can really put yourself in a position to compete, because you can compete. It's just a matter of, do you understand how to, put yourself in a position where you're the voice of production 100%. In your industry, in your market. But
yeah. So wrapping up here.
Yeah.
I just want
We're going for another hour, but
yeah. No, wrapping up here. I just want to say, like, if you take one thing away from this, it's consistently tell your story. Mm-hmm. If you're a business owner and you want to start really ramping up your video production in 2024, stay consistent with it. That's like, what is the percentage of New Year's resolutions that fail after, whatever.
The first 30 days.
Yeah, first 30 days. It's like 90% of the resolutions fail in the first 30 days. The thing is, the same thing with working out and same thing with life is like production, you need to be consistent with it. And we've seen this firsthand. All of us have seen this firsthand. And just consistency, and you're going to see results eventually, guaranteed.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Stay consistent. And if you aren't, don't be consuming. Produce more than you consume. Like that is, you need to be doing that. Demand more in 2024 because it's an election year. So take that however you want. Right now it's the time to go all in for your business. Just like you change your wardrobe, just like you change your Netflix show you watch, you finish one series, you need to be doing that with your story. You need to be putting different ads out there, hiring people like myself, coordinating with production teams. Because if you won't do it, someone else will, and you're gonna regret it.
100%.
Are we PG on this? Are these PG or does it not matter?
No, I said shit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, like, and tying back into like my side of things, whatever you are, if you're a PA, if you're a videographer, if you're a cinematographer, just own your shit. You don't have to be somebody better than what you are right now. Mm-hmm. Just learn. If you don't want to be a videographer, try learning about lighting. If you don't want to be a PA anymore, like, try to step up on set. Try to do a little bit more. Obviously do what you're there for, but like, lean your way into different industries. Just
be humble.
Just at the end of the day, just own your shit.
Yeah. That's why I love having Tyler on this. I wanted to have you on. I want to have him on more episodes too in the future.
Do more?
I'm down.
He's gonna do more. I'm gonna force him to. He may not want to.
You got a lot of fire out of this. And also, if you're watching this, give feedback. I love it. I love the feedback that's come about it, but like more feedback, the better. Anything that has inspired you, inspire other conversation. Would love to get feedback on what else you're curious on, how our world's more, because like everything we do complements one another. So if you're hearing this or something that you have a question about, comment on something, reach out to us. Sean Sievers, Levi Manley, Tyler Chandler, DP on Instagram. Yeah. Because we're going to keep going.
I am Levi Manley on Instagram. And then Wealthy Thinking 101 on Instagram. So follow us all. Hope you guys got some little tidbits. If we inspired you, that's all I really care about. It's just, if I can inspire one person out there to be consistent in 2024, that's what this is all about, really. Yeah. So thank you guys. Thank you, Tyler, for coming on. It was a pleasure. And I can't wait to have you on more, dude.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's right.
Cut. Boom.
That's a wrap.